Gabi Motuba thought she was going to go pub when she grew up, but her father had other plans for her.
Even my journey in this industry, I'd have to understand, okay, who were young black girls in this space before me? Because it's like outside of my opinion, right? I come into this industry, I'm like, oh no, because I'm talented, you have to kind of hear me, like you have to. But it's like, no, there are things that happen outside of you, understandings that happen outside of you, and you kind of first have to know that before you know that, shoot, I'm breaking a lot of boundaries. It's empowering to understand life in that way.
He convinced her to study jazz instead at TUT, where she expanded her mind, met her bae, and was molded into what is today an award-winning composer and sound-based artist with 2 albums as a band leader. Today we talk about her new album, The Sabbath, and we talk about her father, her faith, and her friends' influence on her art. Hello everybody, I'm Helen Herimbi-Moremi, HHM, and this is a Helen Herimbi-Moremi podcast. By now you already know this is the series where I get to sit down with people who make me go, people who really interest and intrigue me. And today I'm really I can't tell you how excited I am. You can't see it on my face, but I am. I'm so excited to finally be sitting with Gabi Motuba. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I feel like I spoke a lot to you about the last time we spoke and all the interesting things about your new album off camera. And now I feel like I need to bring them back. But before we even get there, because this series is about what intrigues me, I'm very curious to know what's been intriguing you in the past couple of days.
Oh, what's been intriguing me? Doechii.
Oh?
Yeah. I like
her?
I like her a lot. Yeah. I like her sound.
Yeah.
And her story is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's really talented, but she also has a great marketing strategy going on right now.
For sure.
Because I feel like for everyone, she's just like, oh my God, she started so long ago. Don't give up on your dreams, which is all true and valid. But it's everywhere you look, it's reinforcing that narrative.
That's true. No, that's true. But I think more than the marketing stuff, I think she carries the story of black girls in the industry. It's really hard, it's really hard to be confident in this industry as you're starting out, because there's so many stories about how to do things, what you need to sound like, what you need to come across as, so that you can be supported by this or that group or this group or that group.
Yeah.
So it's to get to that point and be like, man, screw it, okay, no, to play at your own rules.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And this is what I identify with her. Yeah, it's she's doing it her own way.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah.
And I think there's also a power in being able to say, I'm telling you guys who and what I am.
Yes.
Right? Which makes me think about, there's a song on your new album. Your second album is called The Sabbath.
Yes.
And there's a song title called The Law First Mention, right? And your whole album made me go deep dive into theology and stuff.
What?
But I was like, oh, okay, so it's a theological term, right?
Yes.
So before I even ask you what my question is, can you tell everybody what is the law of first mention? What does it mean?
Maybe. Well, the law first mention means it's the beginning of something. So, to get in the Bible, it's that it puts Genesis at the beginning of understanding. So if you understand how Genesis works in terms of all its characters, in order for you to get a more accurate reading of like the rest of the Bible, you need to consult what was established in Genesis, and then after you can like see where the connections were. Oh, this person was related to that person this way, this way. So it's an idea that kind of speaks to, before you can change something or to get a more accurate reading of something, you have to know how it was established. So this was borrowed. I borrowed this term. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of like even my journey in this industry, I'd have to understand. Okay, who were young Black girls in this space before me? Because it's like outside of my opinion, right? I come into this industry, I'm like, oh no, because I'm talented, you have to kind of hear me. Like, you have to. Like, of course, like who? But it's like, no, there are things that happen outside of you, understandings that happen outside of you. And you kind of first have to know that before you know that, shoot, I'm breaking a lot of boundaries, or I'm doing stuff that is like, that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's empowering
Yeah.
to understand life in that way.
That's dope, man. I also think it's a very interesting concept. And I think they were saying it's from hermeneutics.
Yes.
So, like,
Shoot, you went in, like, yeah.
But I just also find it fascinating because the way that I understood what they were saying is how something is used, even if it's not in Genesis, like the very first time it is mentioned.
Exactly.
You should go look back at that and see the context of why that thing is that thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also kind of wondering if we're going to do the Dochi thing and tell people who we are.
Yeah.
What is the thing that you would want your first mention to be? So like in 10 years, in 4 years, in 3 minutes, when people think about Gabi, they must go, what? What would be attached to your first mention?
A maker of new things.
Ooh.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I did like a whole like self-awareness thing, you know, over the past couple of years. I'm like, okay, what is not working and what feels very natural to me? What feels very natural to me is like breaking the rules. Like there's something that comes really, really, I like to question stuff and establish new things. But I've realized that there are consequences to that. And this is what life has taught me. Like you kind of have to pick your battles. So in music, that's why I draw the line, like a very thick line. I'm like, here, these are my rules. Like, I don't care what you say. In other places, I can't do that. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, you know, like I'm trying. It's like, it's hard to push back in like all societal constructs, right?
Yeah.
So like, but if you're passionate about something, I think this is why passion is so important. Because it's like, the place where you feel your bravest.
Ooh.
You know, you just like, listen.
Because who gonna stop you? Who gonna
check you though? Who gonna tell you though? It's like, and it's a mind thing. It's like, it's not even something that I can explain how it happens. I just know that in this arena, like I'm on it. Like I'm on my stuff, you know, and I have the energy for the resistance.
Yeah.
In some places I don't. Like, you know, it's like, okay, shush. Let's keep it moving. You know? But here I have the time to be pedantic about like, what did you say?
Yeah.
What does this mean? Like, okay, no, that doesn't work. And I have that energy.
And to assert yourself.
Yeah, you know, and it's been, I think this is how I've learned that, okay, this is actually who I am at my best.
Yeah.
I make new things. I establish new things.
I love that will be your first mention, especially like the new part. But I'm also wondering if there's value in the old, right?
Yeah.
Especially like when you were saying, looking at how the young women before you were in the music business.
Yeah.
And then being like, oh, okay, cool. There's a line there or whatever, right?
For sure.
Do you value the old, or are you just like, I'm a maker of new things? So if it's not new,
no, of course I do. You have to. Like I said, like and this is what the law first mentioned, the concept really comes from. I think that's an idea that is trying to it's trying to like have as an essential understanding is like the only way you can know if you're growing is to know what are the limitations.
Yeah.
So the only way I can know that something is new is by knowing what the old thing is.
Yeah.
Or else, you know what I mean? Or else I'd be like grasping on straws and like
Yeah.
lying or pretending or something like that, or trying to convince myself like, oh, I'm like, no.
Just as long as it's not paper straws.
Yeah, listen.
Because you hate paper straws.
Fucking hate paper straws. You see what I mean? So I think that's how I value the old thing. I like for there to be growth in something. I like to be like to be moved and changed by stuff. And you know what I mean? So I have to know what came, like what are the sequence of events so that I can know that I've been literally changed by this sound, or this person has entered the scene and that has altered my thinking.
Yeah.
You know, but to always know that I have gone through some kind of change.
Right.
And and not to sever or erase like history, because I think it's so powerful to be a part of a collective. You know, I think this is why I say like even though I'm a new artist in my mind or whatever,
You still feel like a new artist?
I think so. I do.
This is your second album as the band leader, right?
I was very young in my first album. I have to say, I was experimenting. I had an idea,
Yeah.
but it was like very young in its in its thought.
Yeah.
You know, I needed a bit more time. I think now I'm like the artist I've always wanted to be.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I think now I'm like, oh, that's why it took me so long. Like, because it had to take me that long. It didn't, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It's just my personality. I just needed to go through a few things and figure out a few things. But no, definitely. I'm new now. Yeah, I just landed.
So what is the song actually about?
Law first mentioned.
Yes, on the album.
It's actually about relationships. So looking at like Black relationships and
Like romantic relationships.
Or any other relationships. I'm actually not. I was speaking a very general term.
Okay.
Yeah, but like how it's very difficult for specifically Black people to be in relationship with one another because of all like the trauma that we carry, all the historical trauma. And I wanted to speak about like why sometimes it's very hard for us to be in relationship with one another if we're not aware of like the foundations that really impacted on us as individuals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with apartheid, and even just like the idea that people couldn't self-actualize for a very long time, you know, just like people going through ridicule and humiliation for centuries, and how those kinds of people come together and are supposed to act in a very like, you know what I mean? It's actually very schizo that like, oh no, forget. It's like, no, you can't really forget because you carry all that. Like those things change you. Like you say, like you actually been changed by those events.
Yeah.
And just because you love a person or you find a person interesting, it doesn't eliminate all those events.
Yeah.
You kind of bring it to the thing, and that's why the thing becomes really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the album, right, not just because it's called The Sabbath, leans into like these hyper religious themes, right? And I know for sure that there are some that you're going to be like, no, that's not what I meant. Like, you're reaching. But like hearing you speak now about relationship, kind of also makes me think about, and you said the thing that triggered it was like the thing you said about shame, about like how in the Garden of Eden, you get kicked out and then you have shame because you suddenly are like, oh, I'm naked.
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
It's in the Bible, in Genesis.
I was like, you said that. I'm like, when? And then I say that.
No. I just
Okay,
meant like
yes.
universal use.
Yes.
But I'm thinking here specifically about Adam and Eve.
Yes.
And that they are the first relationship.
Yeah.
And they leave in shame. And then from then on, people need to kind of figure out like how to relate to each other.
For sure.
But yeah, like maybe just to go back a little bit, right? Your first album was Teiti.
Yes.
Did you watch Moana too?
I did. I watched it like 10 times.
Really?
Such a fan. I love animation.
I know, but that specific one means something to you. So for everyone who's watching and is unaware, like what does Disney have to do with this?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the first album?
Well, yeah, the title was inspired by Moana 1. That was my daughter's like favorite movie at the time, and I was like, oh, okay, for sure, he'll be doing this.
Yeah.
I also like the theme of the movie, speaking about like how Tefiti, went from this like incredibly peaceful goddess to this like angry, personified character because her heart was taken away, and. Yeah, it was like philosophically, it was really, really interesting. I liked the message. I liked how this one character had so many different facets.
Yeah.
Because people thought that Taka, which is actually her, like her alter ego, was someone else, but it was actually her.
About it. It's so cute.
I know, I'm such a nerd. But I was like, oh my goodness, this is so interesting how one character is like, can be these very dual personalities, but it's like one person.
Yeah.
And depending on how they've experienced a particular thing, they lean into the different aspects of themselves. And I was like, I can identify with that.
Yeah.
That resonated with me. I was like, yeah, we're kind of walking these dualistic parts. And of course, like at that time I was a young mother. I was going through a lot, mentally. I was like, am I quitting music?
Which is so wild for your first album. Like, here you go, but am I quitting?
Yeah, I'm like, is this up? I think I need to be a dentist. I really pondered that.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, you know what, maybe I should like do dentistry because
of all the things you just
I know, I just thought
I'm glad you didn't go down that route because otherwise we wouldn't have this album. But speaking of these dualities and kind of like linking two sides of something, right? We don't have Tefiti 2, but we do have the Rapture revisited, right?
Yes.
Because you had the Rapture before. But also very interestingly to me, you had Remember Me on Tefiti, and then you have Requiem 4 or 2.
Yeah.
Is it 4 or 2?
The Requiem 4.
Yeah, 4.
Yes.
Gabi Motuba.
Yes.
So for me, I can see like a very clear parallel in that. But for people who wouldn't know, can you talk a little bit about those two songs?
Yeah, I mean, the Rapture, Tefiti was kind of like, I feel like the pre, I don't know, what is it? Like a prequel. Yeah, prelude.
Even a prequel, I think.
I think it's a prequel to the Sabbath. I think I was establishing something in Tefiti. But because of my youngness in what it is that I wanted to do, I had an idea, but I just, like I said, I needed just a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So, but I did want to take an album out. I wanted to do something, I was in the doing something phase. I was like, I want to do something, and let's just see what happens. So a lot of those ideas from Tefiti were like, were like very, very like innocent, you know. Even when I was writing Remember Me, I was writing it for a friend of mine who just recently passed. And the lyrics came from our relationship. And it is like, I don't do it on purpose, you know. I'm not like trying to like write to people who've passed in my, you know what I mean? It's just, it just so happens that like,
it's your life.
It's my life, you know, and those people really impacted me. And I just, like, my music becomes that place where I can pay homage to these individuals. Yeah.
So Remember Me feels like, and I think at the time you even described it as like the little things that make up a big relationship, right? But when I listen to Requiem, it feels like the big things that make up the big relationship.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about that song, and then we'll talk about one or two lyrics, but like just to set the scene for what it's about.
Well, that one was to my dad. I think when he passed, I think I collapsed. I think I had like a mental breakdown, honestly. But interestingly enough, I think it was just a stripping down, really, of like what my priorities were. I think that's what happens when a parent passes. Because in your mind, you think, you always, when they're alive, you're thinking, oh, there's always like someone out there I can hold on to. Like you never really become an adult. When, you know what I mean, when you have like both your parents still looking after you, still checking on you and all that stuff. But when you lose a parent, I think something really fast tracks your maturity somehow, and it allows you to really ask yourself like these burning questions, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, because like, I'm not here anymore. Are you going to stay on this track that you're on? You know what I mean? Are you going to do stuff thinking like there's no... Are you going to keep half-assing? Or, you know what I mean? Just like, and I think that's what I went through. When my dad passed, I was like, man, I've been half-assing so much. Fuck. I've been kind of doing stuff, but not really. But like, you know, there's always just been a thing of like, it'll happen. I don't know what I was waiting for. You know, and this is actually why I resonate so much with Doechii, because she's like, when she says in one interview, like, I was done. She's like, I'm quoting her. I'm paraphrasing probably. And she's like, you know, I was just done thinking something outside of me was going to save me. And at that moment, that's what happened. Like, but for me, I think it happened literally. Like something outside of me, who was my dad, who was going to save me, just vanished. And I was like, oh my God, I kind of have to save myself. Now I'm accountable to my dreams and the life that I want to live, you know, the reality that I always kept thinking, oh, that's going to be me. You know what I mean? Like, it just sort of like slapped me in the face, you know? And then from then on, I was like, okay, I'm going to write a project and it's going to be my rules now. I'm going to write it the way I want to write it. I'm going to prioritize what I want to prioritize. And I'm going to be as pedantic as I want to be. I'm not going to leave. I mean, I wrote the whole score.
Amazing.
Prior to, so people literally came in from beginning to end. Everything was written out. Like, I was like, you don't have to think for yourself.
Just play.
Just play. Just leave your thoughts to the... And this is how I wanted to sound. So from beginning to end, I had like pages and pages of scores. Because I wanted to take ownership and responsibility for this thing, you know. And I was like, I've got one chance to do it. And what a beautiful way also to, you know, remember my father through it. As the thing, I'm like, okay, now I'm really taking shit for serious. You know? I'm like stopping to play around and like, you know.
How great that you were still able to create, right? Because despite the starting point of writing this album being, or composing this album being your dad's passing, you were still like okay, I've got stuff to say.
For sure.
And I think it's very interesting because you recently shared a story about how you wanted to be a pop act.
Yes.
And your dad was like,
that's not happening.
So
I'm not paying for that.
So who and what were you like trying to aim for when you thought to yourself, I'm going to study being a pop singer? Or like, what was that?
That was MTV. Like, I'm an MTV baby through and through. When I was coming up, man, like when I was in my teenage years, like, come on, like Rihanna, Beyonce, the who's who of like, you know, my generation were like, you know, they were really doing their thing. And I was researching heavy. I mean, I remember like at break time, I don't know, like, did you guys have media centers at your school at the time?
No, girl.
Oh, man. Let's not expose.
No, there's a privilege gap here.
For sure.
Yes.
Okay, so, my bad. There was media centers. So at break time and after school, I always used to go there and just watch like live concerts. Not even music video, live concerts, because the live concert, the nice thing was like the music became like rearranged. Like, so I know many versions of Umbrella, like many versions.
Really?
Yeah. Like I know how sometimes like the intro changes up where she starts only with the guitar, and like I know y'all don't even know. I used to even transcribe.
Yeah.
Because at the time, like I was doing music at school, they were teaching us, you know, about Sibelius and score writing and theory and stuff like that. So the first place where I thought about that was like in these pop songs, because I never had the charts. So I used, like at school, you focus on classical music. Then they give you like a Beethoven.
Like a TUT, you mean?
No.
Like
high school.
In high school?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was in I did music
What
since
school
I was
did you
in
go to?
Pretoria High School for Girls.
And you guys had music to that level?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no,
you just played a recorder. They tried. It was like one music class. Okay, so you guys were learning like real.
We were learning the real stuff, and that's my privilege as well. You know, that's also what helped catapult, I think, my ear. But like I was saying, like so there was transcription, right? We had like, but they were giving us like I said, like Mozart's and Beethoven's and all that stuff. I wasn't interested in that. What
you were
I
like
did,
Sean Garrett, the pet, the dream.
Listen, I'm like, okay, let's relax with that. So I'd listen to all these live recordings that I'd transcribe the music.
Oh wow!
And then I'd submit and be like, okay, for my next exam, I want to sing Beyonce.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we don't have the score for it. I'm like, oh no, but here's the score, darling.
I already thought about that. Here you go. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I sang I remember singing like songs like Umbrella, but I sang a lot of Beyonce in high school. She had like that Smash Into You album, that beautiful album.
Yeah. I Am Sasha Fierce.
I'm Sasha Fierce.
That
was a great album. That was a really nice album.
You know what I love about this conversation? I feel like a lot of people who are put into, or even put themselves into, like, I'm in the jazz community and I make this music.
Yeah.
They are always the ones who are like, I love Brenda Fassie. I'm into this kind of music.
For sure.
But to the outside world, it's like,
we're purists.
No, it's like you guys are so highbrow, you know, like you would scoff at a Rihanna or whatever. And then I think it creates this thing where the audience feels like they don't really resonate, or like feel like they feel like you're out of reach because you are like an artiste with an E. And, you know, come to that time you're like,
no,
umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I was, Rihanna. I was listening to her. I mean, even today, I listen to some of the music I listened back then, and I don't know. I think people have a really weird way of seeing jazz musicians as well. I think if I could like simplify what a jazz musician is.
Yeah.
It's someone who's really paying attention to the sound. That's it. And great music comes from all the genres.
Yeah.
Like all the genres. And I say this because like when I listened to Rihanna, I didn't only listen to like her commercial, like a Billboard 100 songs. I got the album.
Yeah.
So on that album, I mean, those who know. Those who know. On the Rated R album, there's a song called G4L.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can just listen to the composition, it's not like a regular song that has like intro, first verse, chorus, second verse, bridge. No. It's like, it's somewhat like through composed kind of, and she's using like technology, in that, like, in that era, and like skewing the sound and all that stuff. So it's like, it's not to say that only like a progressive sound only exists in jazz records.
I agree with you.
I mean, the other day I was listening to Chris Brown.
No,
I was.
Do it.
Listen, I have to be honest. These are honesty moments. Okay. Of course, my brother Chris Brown, very problematic.
Yes.
But I was listening to his first album.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's called Exclusive.
Okay. When he still had the lisp.
Okay. Right. There's the yo, excuse me. I was listening to that guy. He's got a song on there called Lottery. Now, I was really young when I heard this song, right? But if you can hear the intro in that song, he's referencing, or he's sampling like an opera singer, an opera male singer.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that happened back then, and this was pop music. You know what I mean? And and then that already tuned my ear to be like, oh my God, like this is possible? Like that happened to me.
Yeah.
I listened to that song like for like that whole entire year because of that sample.
That's so crazy. Don't go listen to Chris Brown. But it makes me think of...
I don't know what to say.
So don't.
Let's...
it makes me think about the opener of the Sabbath.
Yes.
Because to those of us who didn't go to like Pretoria Girls High,
yes,
and don't have the music background,
For
to
sure.
me, like I feel like you're leaning into like these operatic sounds, right? And initially, like I'd seen the track list and I was like, oh, the Black Adam, and then I'm listening and I'm like, So then I go look and I'm like, oh no, it's not Adam. And then I had to go look up like, oh, what is that, right? And I'd love for you to share with everyone, but I'm also wondering if the reason your voice sounds that operatic and like that is because of the what's the pronunciation?
Adhan. Yeah.
Yes. So what is it? And
what is the Adhan?
Yes.
Okay, Adhan are like prayers. So the most common
in
one,
Islam, right?
Yes. So this is what people would know it to be is like in the Islam tradition, they have these songs, I think at 6 o'clock, these like prayers coming from the synagogue. The mosque, sorry, yes. So this is what we hear. This is called an adhan.
Yeah.
But all, I think, in my understanding, all religious doctrines have this thing. So Christians, they say use like, the Jewish tradition uses the trumpets. Christians use the bell, to signal in that it's like time for church. So it's basically a prayer, but it's kind of like also a call to prayer, like a call to. Yeah. So prior to the prayer, this is like something that is like a symbol, a sonic symbol to the community that now it's time for prayer. So I would find that very interesting. And just thinking about like mourning and having something that speaks to the idea of that, okay, now when you enter this place, to kind of have like a board at the beginning of a thing of the album
Yeah.
to be like, okay, now you're stepping into a moment of prayer. Like from here on out, this is a prayer that we're actually embarking on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of have like a sign at the beginning. And the prayers, the sounds that I use are also borrowing from a lot of the vocal sonic traditions of these prayers. So I'm using the Amen, which is something that I hear in my own church growing up as a kid of the Methodist church. The Amen comes from there. That's how we say it. And
it's really guttural on your
album. I mean,
it's
of course,
going through it.
It's super exaggerated, of course. Like we don't do that.
Yeah.
But like the way you say Amen, like that's how the tradition that I came from say it.
Yeah.
And then of course, like there's this Middle Eastern idea of like this Middle Eastern scale, kind of like these ragas. This is the sound that I'm borrowing there. Yeah. And then there's this Western idea that I'm borrowing from, also of the operatics. This is also how the West kind of comes to these very serious moments through, the vehicle of opera. So I'm touching on a whole lot of geographies. But like I say, these are sounds that I hear already that have kind of become part of like my oral perception, like the way that I hear sound, the way that I hear music.
You're speaking like a jazz artist right now.
I'm sorry.
No, I love it. It's great. It's great. So why the Black Adhan?
So this is a dedication to Black people, and an Adhan, like I'm saying, is a call to prayer, right? So when I'm thinking also about the Black experience and also about my own personal mourning in this, which is kind of inspiring, this body of work, I'm thinking about kind of all the moments of tragedy that Black people have experienced over the years, right? And I'm thinking about that we also have not really been given a moment to kind of come to terms with, how we've come to life, right? How we've moved through life and communally. And I just wanted to write something that really people could perhaps use, when thinking about the Black experience and, how to think about violent acts, and, violent acts in many ways, in the way of like deferred dreams, in the way of like disappointments, in the way of like unwanted experiences, that you really just come to think like, when you're sitting down, you're like, man, I can't believe I even went through that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted that to be, that song to be like, just to account for all those moments that we're not really given the opportunity as a community to acknowledge, and to sit in. So, yeah.
That's dope. It's also interesting because when I was doing like the research for this, I saw that the Black Adhan is a guy called Bilal. And I don't know how true this is. Like,
I'm sure it's true. Yeah.
Our Muslim friends would have to say yes or no. But apparently he was the first person that was asked to do the very first call to prayer. And he was Black.
Yes.
And the whole idea is we're all equal. But yeah, just tidbit that I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously, like this, like you spoke about mourning on this album, right? On Requiem, you ask at the end of the song, who do I pray to?
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like this album has like these deep, like I said, hyper-religious tones, right? Did you find an answer? Because I feel like we get to the end of the album and I don't know what your answer is.
I don't know. I don't know either.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say this, but I mean, this is also a very much of like a research project for me, right? Using the idea of the Bible, also part and parcel of this questioning of how does the world work, right? How do we come to the world as these different individuals, these different racial groups, these different cultural groups, right? And what is it that we really believe as collectives? This was actually, I think, at the crux of this album. What is it that collective groups really believe and understand about themselves? I think this is why the Bible, like one of the oldest books, in history, and also because, like, as a Black community, like a lot of us have this inheritance, right, of the church. Someone in our family is like, go to church, or there's like there's a church rhetoric, which falls part of like our initial like belief system. People can gravitate to other things as they mature, but that kind of always seems to be like at the apex of what it is like that we experience in the world. And my research project really is about a lot of theorists who are speaking specifically about like what the Black experience is. So it's like Black studies, right? And wanting to know how like the Black experience has been constructed. And it just so happened, really, as I was reading the Bible, there were a lot of similarities. These ideas like about the law first mentioned. There's this thing of like a paradigm shift. So what has been established through ways of like violent acts. And of course, we all know that for religion to be ushered in, there was a lot of violence that had to, kind of occur. And then it's saying to that like, in order to establish something else, there kind of has to be this sea of violence that has to occur within one's consciousness, that like people don't come to new ideas just at the whim. Right? Like something has to really coerce you into believing something new. Right? So I was interested, I'm interested in that, and also I'm interested in that sonically. Like what shapes my sound? What is it that I really hear? What establishes me? And if really I have to change, what drives what inspires change? It's not something that like I'm just like, oh, I'm going to do something else. It doesn't really, that's not honest. Things don't really work this way. So like I'm answering this question of like, this hyper religious. So it's not really that, but it's like I understand in that way because like having been raised in a church environment, I just hear so many similarities. In terms of like what Black studies is trying to say, what Afro-pessimism is trying to say, and what the Bible has made mention of. So
Got you. There's another song on the album that I find really interesting. Order My Steps.
Yes.
And just that first listen, it sounds like you're combining Psalm 23, because we're talking about being in the valley of the shadow of death.
Yes.
And also Psalm 119, which is where we see order my steps. So were you thinking about it like that, or were you just like, what can I say to God? Like, what?
No.
What were you thinking about?
I mean, like, that's a very popular scripture. Like, I think everyone knows, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So this was like one of the scriptures I had in mind. But I wasn't really thinking about like, what do I say specifically in that song? I don't think so. I don't usually write my own lyrics. Like I had an encounter with listening to Joni Mitchell when I was young, and I was like, you know what? I'll never be that writer. So let me just not
Really?
try. No, but for real, I
Joni
think
Mitchell made you feel like
Joni
you should
Mitchell,
not write?
yeah, she did.
Girl, no.
No, and not in a bad way, but I think she made me realize how serious writing was. When I heard her, it was like a combination of poetry and like just lived experience, and like it just seemed like she just knew a lot.
Yeah.
And knew how to combine these different phrases. I'm sure she reads a lot, so she collects these different words from these different, writers. So I was like, not to say I couldn't do that, but I needed to prepare. Like I think writing is a real art in and of itself. And at the time, I'm working on composition. Like this is where I'm like, growing my skills as a writer. So I don't always want to like overcompensate for something. So if I don't have to do something, I don't want to do it. Like,
So then who wrote these lyrics for Order My Steps?
What do you mean?
Like,
who wrote? Like
no,
that's
I
a
mean,
Bible verse.
Yes, but it doesn't go like, it's not like you're singing Psalm 23. You're singing different parts of the Bible.
Of course, like I listen to the melody, I listen to what I've written.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like I see, okay, this is how
what words?
Yeah, this is how
mind.
It would go.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
I thought maybe someone else, like you were saying, you don't write your lyrics or someone else.
No, I like write like from beginning to end.
Yeah. But that's what came to mind.
But that's what came to mind, and that's how it fit with my composition.
Yeah.
The only other song I wrote was The Law First Mentioned.
Yeah.
That was the one I wrote from beginning to end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So interesting, because Psalm 119 is apparently the longest chapter in the Bible.
Wow.
And because you started it with being in the valley of the shadow of death, which I assumed was just grief, I was just like, yo, maybe it feels like when you're grieving, you're in the longest valley of the shadow of death. And how great that God is there with you.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Like that's obviously my interpretation of it. But like what I'm hearing you say now is like, no, you wrote this great melody. You were like,
no. But
what are the words I can put here?
Listen, like I believe I don't believe in coincidence. I think it's something like with this album. I mean, I can really speak about like the technical stuff,
Yeah.
But I think I'd be disingenuous, like with this album, like I was really going through it, and I was really having like even like a spiritual, I think, like sort of reawakening or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I was also very intentional that this is going to be a great album. Like I already knew before I wrote this, I was there asking God, I'm like, God, my dad,
Yeah.
But I really want to write something like really phenomenal. And I think some things were serendipitous, some things were like super coincidence, but I think that it was just also my subconscious kind of, picking out the right things. And it's like, I'm not always in control of what that is.
Yeah.
It just so happens that that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I think I went into writing this album with a lot of intentionality.
Yeah.
And a lot of asking, a lot of humility as well. And I think, things just fell into place.
And it's so great.
Thank you.
Do you observe the Sabbath?
I do.
Really?
I do. Whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday,
Yeah.
I think in our home, it's like, I think it's a Saturday.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday. I do, yeah.
Because I feel like I didn't ask you why you named this album The Sabbath.
Yeah.
Tell me, why did you name this album The Sabbath?
Yeah.
Is it too personal to share?
No. I like it just
You're tired
sounded.
of answering it.
No. Kind of.
Just a little bit.
No, I mean the Sabbath, like, was the the final day after everything had been, done and made, and it was when things were established, And it was like reflection. And I like now, of course, like even as people interview me, tell me like, no, God said this and that. I mean, I'm not a Bible scholar, so there are some things that are really interesting in what people pick up from the album. But like just saying that, it is good, when God was like, I did this thing and it is good. And I was like, that's a great thing to meditate on, that whatever has been established, it's good. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, and everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So I think that was maybe also in my subconscious. Like I just wanted it to be like, okay, cool. Like it's happened, but everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it will.
And it is.
Yeah.
And it is. And we're here now. I mean, like it's been a couple of years, so it's been okay. It's been okay, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for coming to talk to me about this album and about Rihanna and all the other things
all the other
we didn't
people
know about you.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely interesting. I'm really curious to see what your next 5 years looks like, the life that you're living now, what music it inspires.
For sure. I already have a next project.
Really?
For sure.
What is it?
I can't say.
Had to try. But thank you so much, Gabi. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Gabi Motuba. I'm Helen Herimbi-Moremi. This has been a Helen Herimbi-Moremi podcast. I guess we'll see you on the next one, yeah?